or understand this side of medicine. I call it the other side of medicine, the flip side of medicine. During the training, there was study after study. There was myth after myth, because even myself, when you hear hormones, you think blood clots, heart attacks, hormones are bad, right? Like we start to age, we get older. Let's not call it aging. That's such an ugly word. We get older. Just things change in our bodies and we accept that as normal. So aches and pains, fatigue, brain fog, even kind of feeling irritable. There was study after study after study. And one that really stood out to me was about the age where a lot of women will start to have issues with their mood and start on antidepressants. And a lot of the time that coincides with something called perimenopause. So now this has my attention. So with all that said, in the end, my mind was probably, my brain was this big by the end of the training, like it was huge. And that was part one, right? So the other part of our training, or what happened while I was there in Texas, was that I went to the actual 𝗪𝗥𝗧𝗑 Center, which was like a hospital, by the way, where they actually do regular, they do this all day, every day, BHRT, thyroid optimization, all of the above. And we did hands-on training, and we also watched them actually do an intake on a patient, go through the process, the education, everything. Now, by the end of that training, I felt completely ready to proceed. So let me fast forward to what happened from there. I got with Jordan when I got back to Florida. And I have one of our hangups is always our systems, right? I have my systems, I have my intakes, I have my consents, I have my flow sheet to document, I have a inventory system, and that automatically gives me compliance logs to keep track of the inventory. I have inventory front loaded that I didn't have to pay for, so that as I'm getting going, I don't have to worry about that overhead. So I don't have to worry about anything until I actually see a client and get the pellets in them. So with that said, I loved having the training. I loved having the systems. And of course, I loved having Jordan. And Jordan is also known as a practice development specialist, but helping you to guide with marketing, helping to guide me with really getting the systems in place and set up. She came and visited my clinic. We've met a few times now. So with all that said, I just wanted to share this. So many nurse practitioners, when they saw me posting about being in Dallas, they were in my inbox and they were asking. I've already shared just via my DMs. I talked to a lot of you in the DMs. I've shared about this a little bit, but I just wanted to expand it. And I asked Jordan to do this, and she kindly agreed. So that's a little bit about my journey. Oh, one more thing. Yes, I also have BHRT now. What was funny is that while I was at the training, I ran into another nurse practitioner and I saw her name tag said Florida. And I said, wow, where are you in Florida? It turns out, y'all, that she was right in my building. In fact, we were on the same floor. She had moved in a month or two prior, and she was on the same floor across from me before I relocated my clinic. So that was quite hilarious. So made that connection and was able to go ahead and get started myself, because why not? Every doubt that I had and all the science and research was there, right? So I also started with my BHRT back in March. I have been 2 rounds now, and every round actually helps optimize you more. So I'm on round 2 of doing BHRT pellets, simple, easy process. And it's something that once we're a partner, that we don't even have to pay for. And if you look up BHRT in your area, yeah, it's expensive. So it's a great benefit and something I've been appreciative of, but I have really enjoyed the clarity and the decreased brain fog, and just the more confident feeling, the sleep. Sleep is so important. Being able sometimes to sleep for like 8 hours straight and wake up like, wow, did I really sleep that long? So there's so many more things. We all know libido, right? But even outside of that, there's so many more benefits. And honestly, if I can, my plan is that I'll be doing this even in my 80s. I heard the story even while I was at training of someone getting this for their grandmother who was maybe in her 80s or 90s, and even changing the quality of her life for the years she had left and really drastically improving it. So with that said, that's a little bit about me and my journey. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Awesome. So yes, obviously we do a lot, and we're going to be able to elaborate that a little bit more. So I want to kind of give the mic over to our EVP of the East Coast, Mr. 𝗘𝗟𝗘𝗩𝗫. He's going to really go into what is our mission, what is our vision, what is our goal in healthcare, and how are we going to transform it?
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, thank you, Dr. Stewart. It is really inspiring, really, to hear your story, and really to hear your journey, because like you mentioned, when we came through med school or medical training, there wasn't a lot of instruction on this. And so there's a lot of misconceptions in the marketplace around hormone replacement. Who needs hormones? You know, we tend to think about hormone replacement only being for that hormonal person, you know, or that postmenopausal female who, you know, is dealing with hot flashes. And a lot of times we just don't understand the foundations of what a hormone is and who really would benefit from this particular therapy. So we're going to spend a few minutes just touching on you know, the foundation of this medicine. For those of you that are on the call that maybe have already moved into doing hormone replacement therapy, and we're going to talk about different modalities. That's shots, creams, orals, pellets. There's different modalities to have hormone replacement done. But there may be some people on this call that have already been in this space. Some of the information you're going to hear will be a bit of a refresher for you. It may be a reminder for you. And then for those of you that haven't entered into this space, we're just going to touch the beginning surface of the benefits of the medicine. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about the systems that Dr. Stewart was just referencing. So we start with this slide, which says Hippocrates quote, which is the greatest medicine of all is to not to need medicine. It's basically to give the body what it needs in order to be able to heal itself. And that's an important component, is to be able to allow the body to have what it needs so that we can achieve homeostasis, so that we can allow ourselves to heal and recover from sickness and disease. So next slide there, Jordan. Our mission is to positively impact people's lives through the advancement of medical wellness. As we came through COVID, one of the things that was very, very helpful for the country was people are considering their health from a proactive perspective. And Dr. Stewart touched on that. The difference between Western medicine and a wellness initiative is that there's a place for Western medicine, as she mentioned, but Western medicine is typically reactive. We wait till we get sick, and then we try to treat disease or sickness from behind. But now more than ever, people are paying attention to that. If you had comorbidities going into COVID, you were at higher risk for, you know, acquiring sicknesses and even potentially death. And that's always the case. You know, if we've got cardiovascular disease or diabetes, but patients are now paying attention to that. Also, more than ever, medical practitioners are reconsidering their approach because of that to medicine. Can we be proactive instead of reactive? And then market conditions with insurance reimbursables are disaster, because the model is set up with insurance reimbursables the way that it is. Our only options in order to keep the lights on a lot of times is to just see more patients. Insurance reimbursables continue to go down and continue to be a challenge. And so we have patients that aren't really feeling good, patients that are waiting to get sick and deal with sickness and disease from behind. And then we have medical providers, whether you're primary care, OB-GYN, internal medicine, pain management, urology. It doesn't really matter the discipline of medicine that you come from. You're fighting insurance reimbursables, and that becomes a challenge. So tonight we want to talk about, you know, how can HRT solve for the patient and for the practice? How can we solve for what patients are dealing with on a day-to-day basis? And then how can we solve for practices that are looking to create predictable recurring revenue and not have to lose in the insurance battle? So I want to start with just a reminder around our current health crisis. Let's talk about disease and sickness here for a minute. think about the fact that there's information out there and studies out there that say by the year of 2050, 13.8 million over the age of 65 will have Alzheimer's disease. That's a startling number. That's roughly about 1 in 2 adults over the age of 65 will have Alzheimer's. 1 in 3 people are diabetic or pre-diabetic. 1 of every 4 deaths is still related to heart disease. It's a primary killer for women specifically. And then we've got all kinds of other things: osteoporosis, osteopenia, toxicity, cancer. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. So those are our disease rates. And everybody that's on this call knows that our disease rates continue to rise instead of fall. But on top of that, every day, no matter what the practice is, patients come in and they complain about these things: fatigue, lack of energy. Dr. Stewart was just talking about this. Anxiety and joint pain and pain management, depression, migraines, belly fat. Again, just they're left with can I sleep? Can I not sleep? Poor libido, sexual dysfunction, ED, the list just goes on and on. Well, how is it that hormones address those symptomatology and those diseases? And we want to touch on that a little bit tonight. So let's talk about what a hormone is just in general. Hormones are chemicals made in the glands that act to control certain actions of cells and organs. They're messengers. They are the messengers within the body that control communication from cell to cell. There's billions of messages that are happening, and it's necessary for homeostasis. So what we're trying to do in medicine, again, if you go back to the Hippocrates quote, is that we're trying to achieve homeostasis. We're trying to give the body what it needs in order for the body to communicate. I've got a disease rate that's increasing, and if I don't have the chemical messengers present in order to be able to have that communication take place within the body cannot do what it needs to do in order to deal with the symptom or in order to deal with the disease that it's fighting with. So hormones are key to disease prevention, and they are primary to health management. If you do not have sufficient hormones in your body and balanced and optimized within your body, then health management is going to be a very, very difficult issue. So let's understand the foundational role of hormone replacement therapy in as it pertains to health. Our founder, Dr. 𝗘𝗩𝗘𝗩𝗪, recently wrote an article called Now More Than Ever, and she was specifically dealing with this concept of, because of where we're at as a society, now more than ever, we need to be paying attention to our health. And now more than ever, we need to be understanding the role of hormones as it pertains to disease prevention and as it pertains to the symptomatology. So even if a patient doesn't have symptoms, imbalanced hormones may be threatening their health. Many patients with low T and estrogen don't experience the common symptoms. Those are the things that we talked about, like fatigue and brain fog and depression and weight management or muscle loss. They may not be experiencing those things, and they don't think that they need this therapy. Well, the problem with this is it's a dangerous assumption, considering that hormones play a key role in preventing diseases like osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, certain cancers, et cetera, et cetera. Hormonal imbalance in all generation or happens in all genders, and it's not just unique to women or to preteens. Again, a lot of times we think about hormone, and if you think about the way society even talks about hormones, we'll be like, well, somebody's hormonal, or they'll have, you need to check your hormones if they're moody. And we just reference it that way, kind of in a negative way. Or again, someone that's in postmenopause that's maybe struggling with hot flashes, oh, that's somebody that needs to have their hormones checked. But what we know is that hormonal imbalances actually occur in all genders. Hormones are not just for moodiness, hot flashes, or erectile dysfunction. Hormone replacement therapy is necessary for men and for women of all ages, and it's vital for healthy living and for disease prevention. So again, if you're thinking about what a hormone is, at its core base, it is simply the chemical messenger within the body that allows the body to achieve homeostasis. So when you start to show up with certain clinical signs and symptoms related to things of this nature, moodiness, weight management, sleeplessness, mood disorders, you need to get your hormones checked. It is a key clinical indicator saying you have a problem and we need to look at what's going on in the body. Again, the body cannot achieve optimal health, cannot achieve vitality without the optimal amount of hormones present within your body. We're talking primarily about the sex hormones. We're primarily talking about testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, thyroid function. These are the key hormones that we're talking about because there is a hormone receptor on every cell of your body, every cell, your skin, your eyes, your teeth, your major organs, every cell of your body has a hormone receptor on it in order for the body to be able to communicate, in order for the body to be able to actually achieve the wellness that we're looking for. So why is it that every patient is not screened for hormonal loss and imbalances? If every office, every medical office is dealing with this, which again, if you go to primary care, it doesn't matter what discipline of medicine you come from, patients are coming in and they're complaining about these things. They're watching their disease risk profile go up and up and up. So why is it that we are not screening for every patient that comes to our offices? We should be screening for a hormonal loss and imbalance. And the number one reason is lack of medical training. Think about this. I would ask, and if anyone on this call has a different experience, I would ask you to raise your hand. But what we know is that when we come through our medical training, medical practitioners were not trained on hormone optimization or the role of hormones as it pertains to overall health. The number two reason is societal and medical myths and misconceptions. We think, and Dr. Stewart just mentioned this, well, when I think about hormones, don't hormones cause cancer? Doesn't it cause breast cancer in women or prostate cancer in men? Isn't there an increased risk of heart attacks or blood clots, strokes? There's confusion around anabolic steroids versus human identical or bioidentical. Well, that's going to cause, masculinizing for women, or that's going to cause me to have a deep voice, or that's going to cause me to lose my hair. There's all these different types of myths and misconceptions as it pertains to hormones. So again, if you have people showing up in your office and they're presenting with these things or things like this, weight gain, decreased exercise tolerance, joint pain, anxiety, irritability, insomnia, decreased libido, all of those types of things. The one that's highlighted down there in the red, relationship strife. And we're not just talking about husband and wife here or person and significant other. We're talking about relationship strife in general, increased relationship strife with those coworkers, just tense when you're out in public. When you have people that are dealing with these things, these are clinical signs and symptoms directly related to the sex hormones and the insufficiency of them in the body. And what we're starting to see is that the insufficiencies are starting to show up in younger and younger generations. This is not just a therapy, again, for postmenopausal women or for men that are maybe trying to deal with erectile dysfunction. It's a therapy that's pointed to all ages, all genders, and showing up with these types of clinical presentation means that at the very least, we should be screening these patients and getting a hormonal panel done on them to determine whether or not their hormones are truly optimized. So we know that hormones are foundational to the health, but the bad news is that hormones are on the decline. Men aged from 30 to 70 will lose 1 to 10% of your total testosterone production every single year, and women lose 50% of a production per year after the age of 30. We know that optimal ranges sit between 80 to 150, that's total testosterone for a female, and 800 to 1200 for a male. But what we're starting to see is when we look at the population and we do that initial lab panel on them, we're seeing ranges instead of in the 80 to 100, we're seeing ranges in the 5 to 10 range for females, or even less. We're seeing people that are men that are showing up that are in the 200 and 300 range. And we know that not only does age cause us to start to lose our hormones and have a hormonal insufficiency, we know that in addition to that, the foods that we eat, the lack of nutrition that we get, injuries that occur, stress, toxicity in our environment, all of this is piling into a loss of hormones, and therefore our disease rates continue to climb. And not only do our disease rates continue to climb, but the symptomatology, the vitality of life continues to suffer as well. So we're here tonight to share with you the good news of how testosterones or how hormones in general play a vital role in some of these symptoms and in some of these diseases. And I want to turn it back over to Jordan just to walk through how it is that hormones specifically address some of the things that we've mentioned so far.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. So as we kind of go into some of the clinical and the medical side of things, we're not going to go too in detail because that's kind of what our training's for. But I just want to really talk about the core hormones we're really talking about. So obviously testosterone and estradiol are going to be two of the main ones. Thyroid optimization, vitamin D, things of that nature. I don't have that listed in here, but those are important in order for your testosterone and your estradiol to really work as properly and as well as it really could if you were to move forward with hormone replacement therapy for your patients. So like we mentioned, it's not just for men. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to testosterone optimization, especially in females. It's the most abundant hormone in actively in us. I mean, again, it's on every single receptor of our body, heart, brain, breast, all the things. So when we have deficient testosterone levels, it just kind of goes back to, we have these increased incidents where we have cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, dementia, and the list goes on and on and on. And those numbers just keep on growing year by year. And how Jeff kind of just left that off is we live in a very toxic world. The food we eat, the body wash we use, the hair wash we use, everything has some type of hormone disruptor. So again, it's derived from ovaries, testicles, and the adrenal glands, and it does act at a cellular level with direct effect with the androgen receptors. So again, we're not going to go too in detail with the medicine, but at least kind of giving you a good idea of what we're talking about from a bioidentical hormone. So again, androgen receptors are found literally everywhere: hair follicles, skin, scalp, brain, spinal cord, nerves, eyes, your thyroid, super important, cardiovascular tissue, breast tissue. I always like to bring this study up for Dr. 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧. She is a surgeon out of Dayton, Ohio. She had a patient that had a breast tumor, and she utilized testosterone pellets to really reduce that mass within, I think it was 43 days. Don't quote me on that, but it's all these myths and misconceptions that testosterone causes breast cancer and they cause clots and strokes. It's just simply not true. And there's a lot of evidence and medical literature around that showing that that is right. So again, lung tissue, the uterus area, GI tract, muscle, all the things. So we just have to understand that testosterone, when it's not optimal, we're not living as optimally as we possibly could. So benefits of testosterone in both men and women. Again, it's in prevention and treatment of cardiovascular disease, coronary artery disease, Alzheimer's, depression, prostate and breast cancer, like I just mentioned. Sexual dysfunction is a big one. We see patients that kind of move forward with this therapy. That's one of the things that really get resolved fairly quickly. And a lot of the time, that's one of their main symptoms that they really kind of suffer from. Diabetes, insulin resistance. I mean, I'm sure as practitioners, you see this every single day, and it's just growing and growing and growing. So what if we could prevent that from even happening in the first place? Same with osteoporosis. Testosterone plays a direct effect on bone health. Same with estrogen. So we want to make sure that we want to make sure that we keep these, main sex hormones optimized to really prevent and all of these chronic diseases. This is a really cool study. I always like adding this study in there specifically because no one correlates testosterone as being a bone builder. So this is a great study. It demonstrated a 4-fold increase in bone density versus oral estrogen and 2 times more greater than patches. So you can see here from a bone density standpoint with oral estrogen, it was about 1 to 2% increase per year. For patches, you're getting about 3.5% increase, but with pellets, you're getting an 8.3% increase in bone density per year. I mean, that's pretty much tripled from what an oral modality could do or a topical modality could do. I mean, that is huge. So, all these osteoporosis patients, 80% of them are female. And the reason why is because menopause is a sex-specific risk factor for that. So when we have deficient hormones, well, now our bone density is being lowered as well. And we have hip fractures and all these things. So we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And the myths of T therapy in women. So there's a really cool study that came out that proposed the top 10 common myths. I put a few on here, but the first one is the physical and mental health. So again, we have thousands and thousands of testosterone receptors in our brain. And that is what really regulates the brain fog and the mood and the irritability and all these things. When you walk in another room and you're like, oh, wait, what did I come into this room for? That's brain fog. That is that short-term memory loss. And a lot of that has to do with just we're not functioning as properly as we could. Tea is not masculizing unless in very high doses. So, we're not here to put people to super physiological levels. We don't want to turn a woman into a man or, anything of that nature. We simply want to optimize to the levels that we were when we were thriving back in our 20s and 30s and when our hormones were optimized. Tea is cardiac and breast protective. So again, it kind of goes back to that study I said about 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗥. For all this time and for years and years and years, and the Women's Health Initiative kind of started this, which we'll go into here shortly, but it's breast protective. We've seen that testosterone pellets have completely reduced a tumor mass in the breast. So all these things that we have come to know about hormones just simply aren't true. And again, we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. But transdermal testosterone pellets or cream do not have adverse effects on the liver. So, sometimes when you're doing the oral estrogens, and again, the Women's Health Initiative really kind of touched on this, but oral estrogens, synthetic oral estrogens or topical, and then progestins are what they really saw in the Women's Health Initiative to cause some of these adverse effects. And everyone just kind of put that in as hormones are bad. And so we'll dive into that in a little bit. But tea is mood stabilizing. It helps with mood. It doesn't make you aggressive, especially in males. Everyone's like, is my husband going to have roid rage? And I think a lot of people kind of put bioidentical with anabolic. And we have to keep those in two very separate categories, because anabolic, that's where you do get some of that aggression and some of the stuff that we don't want and that we're not doing with bioidentical. So the safety and the efficacy of tea therapy in women is well established. I mean, there is tons and tons and tons of literature out there. We can definitely provide that to you if that's something you want to dive a little deeper into. But abandoning these myths and misconceptions and unfound concerns about testosterone and 17-beta estradiol and micronized progesterone and thyroid optimization has really just kind of given hormones kind of bad names. So we need to just read the literature and go over it and just know that this is safe and it's efficacious and it's been around since the 30s. So it's something that's not just new and popped up on the market. So we'll briefly go into estrogen as well. And really, we're talking about 17-beta estradiol. So typically when you're giving, estrogen replacement to a female, if they need it, and that really is going to go based on medical history and a good consult with provider. But when we're talking about estrogen, it's not just about hot flashes. I think everyone goes to, it's night sweats, it's hot flashes, all these things. And it really, estrogen plays a protective role and so many other things, and it works synergistically with your progesterone and also testosterone. So everything just kind of works synergistically with each other to make this harmony and balance within the body. So estradiol's pivotal role in all major organ systems in men and women. I mean, female sexual health. Estrogen plays a big role in orgasms and the strength of the orgasms, I guess you could say, but also lubrication. So if you have painful intercourse or you just haven't had a time where you could get intimate and not be in pain, a lot of that has to do with either lack of lubrication or there's some type of decreased estrogen there. And again, we're losing 50% a year, you guys. So a lot of that starts to come in very quickly and you're not going crazy. It happens, but I always like to say suffering is optional. Aging is inevitable. Suffering is optional. We have options for you and your patients. Again, metabolic syndrome and heart health, very, very anti-inflammatory, especially with brain concerns as well. Bone density. So again, kind of going back when we see all the osteoporosis patients and 80% of them are females. Again, menopause is a direct correlation to decreased bone density, and that's because of decreased estrogen and decreased testosterone. So colon cancer, low estradiol levels are linked to increased rates of colon cancer in women. So again, we want to prevent all of these things from happening. Same thing, chronic pain states, anti-inflammatory, has direct effect on pain processing as well as testosterone. Opioids suppress testosterone production. So if you have a chronic pain patient that is on opioids or some type of heavy pain medication, that is suppressing their testosterone, and testosterone plays a direct role in really your pain threshold. So how much pain you can take. Alzheimer's disease prevention. So again, it's really calming down that inflammation within the brain, mood alterations and depression, mental clarity, memory, cognition, stroke protection, and prevention. So again, going back, everyone's like, oh, hormones cause strokes and blood clots and cancer. And that's just simply not true. When we talk about bioidentical 17-beta estradiol, has protective benefits. But when we're talking about conjugated equine estrogens that are synthetic, it absolutely has adverse effects. So we will go into that here shortly. Oh, here it is. So the Women's Health Initiative. So this was a study that was done in the early 2000s, I believe. And it was basically a study on synthetic estrogens, conjoined equine estrogens, and synthetic progestins. So what kind of happened is this study came out, it kind of made news headline that hormones cause all these strokes and blood clots and breast cancer, and really just kind of scared people. It scared a whole generation of women out of people if they're already on hormones or they were thinking about getting hormones. It really scared an entire generation from getting the protective benefits of hormones due to not being able to separate synthetic from bioidentical. So everything that we're talking about tonight, it's all bioidentical. It's what our body naturally recognizes as, what it closely mimics our body's natural production. I like to call it endocrine mimicry. So it's basically just matching how your body would normally produce it. So the Women's Health Initiative, when this came out, it scared an entire generation of women off of their hormones, same with males. And it just caused problems because no one really touch base on the fact that it was synthetic, and we want to stay away from the synthetic hormones. That's not what we're talking about here. And then in 2017, they came out with a lovely study that said a principal investigator of the landmark women's health study says initial results that linked hormone replacement therapy to breast cancer and heart attacks were misleading and distorted for publicity. It's been a long day, so just bear with me here. But so, I mean, they came out in 2017 with this article basically saying, oh yeah, and by the way, kind of all the stuff that we said in the early 2000s about hormones and causing strokes and blood clots and cancer was just not accurate, and it was very misleading. And yeah, hormones are pretty much protective and they're good is kind of what they came out with. So a lot of practitioners and patients, so practitioners were obviously scared because they didn't want to give anything to their patient that was going to do harm and wasn't safe and efficacious. So it just caused a rift in hormones. And so now everyone has this taboo about hormones that, it causes all these things. But there's tons of medical literature out there that says otherwise. And then, of course, this 2017 article, I mean, this is a whole new transitioning and turning point for hormone optimization as being a staple in treatment plan. So now we're going to kind of go into the business solutions. I didn't want to talk too much on the medicine and get too detailed with it. But now that we agree that optimized hormones are good, there's 3 questions. What modality is best for your patients? What options are best for your patients and what treatment plan? And then what company are you going to partner with to be able to kind of bring it all together for you? So I'm sure a lot of you have known there are injections. So you have your testosterone cypionate, typically that's usually used in males. Creams, you do have bioidentical and synthetic options, and same with oral, you do have bioidentical and synthetic. So what we're really going to be focusing on today is pellet therapy and kind of why that's superior to some of the other modalities, because you do have options. So your patients do have options, but there are some nuances with pellets, or I'm sorry, with some of the other modalities that kind of make pellets a little bit more superior. So we're going to briefly go into that. It is the longest study modality. So pellet therapy has been around since the 1930s. It is the most widely studied form of BHRT, and it is plant-based. So everything is derived from yams. So nothing is, being mass produced in the lab from a synthetic standpoint, like Premarin or Prempro or some of those other modalities that you have out there. The good thing about pellets is it increases compliance for patients. So let's say, a patient's on a cream. They have to rub that cream in daily. They have to make sure that they're absorbing. And that's the thing, is 45% of people may not even be absorbing the hormones that they were prescribed. So we have to keep that in mind too. With creams, it does transfer. So if you have grandbabies, if you have pets, if you hug someone, that testosterone cream is now transferring to your loved ones, and we want to make sure that your testosterone stays to yourself. So with the transferring, we want to make sure that we keep your testosterone to you as your prescription. So that's another kind of downfall with the creams. Now the patches, you have to reapply them, you have to change them, you have to find the right spot to place them. And again, it kind of goes back to absorption. 45% of people won't even absorb all the hormones that they were intended to absorb. So now they're not reaching their lab levels and they're not getting that symptom relief that they were looking for. So it does increase patient compliance with pellets because you are getting it inserted into the subcutaneous tissue. It's a very simple process. You basically just take lidocaine. For females, they're getting placed in the glute. You're numbing that area, making a little incision, taking a trocar and placing those pellets into that subcu area. No stitches or sutures are needed, just a little steri strip, and then they're good to go. So it's a very simple, quick, virtually painless procedure, and they're going to get those continuous levels over the 3 to 4 months for females and 5 to 6 months for males. And it's very individualized. So we're going to take in labs, we're going to take in your symptoms, the patient's medical history, all the things so that we can give a precise dosing on not just testosterone and estradiol, but also thyroid and progesterone and nutraceuticals may they need it. So I love this quote because we're all about practitioners who are all about patients. So this is where we're kind of going to get into the business side and how 𝗑𝗥𝗧𝗑 Health Solutions partners with you from a practitioner standpoint to kind of give you all the systems and the processes, education, tools, resources, everything that you need from A to Z to fully launch these type of integrative therapies into your clinic. So first things first is our medical training and education. That's kind of where we have to start. We have to get a foundation. We have to get that educational foundation. And we have a medical board with over 60 years of experience in gut health and internal medicine, gynecology, all the main core specialties. So we have a pretty awesome medical board that does a lot of our lectures and provides webinars and training videos for you guys to have access to. So it's developed and supported by leading medical experts. 𝗘𝗩𝗘𝗫𝗓, she's our founder. She is going to be that top picture there. And then Dr. Pete, he's another one of our speakers. He's a gynecologist out in Texas, and he is just absolutely phenomenal. They typically do majority of our trainings, and they are just awesome. So what our medical training, not only initial, but ongoing training, is designed to keep you at the forefront of the industry and innovations. Hormones, peptides, all the integrative functional kind of therapies, it's changing every day. So we want to make sure that we can keep you at the forefront of that with all the literature and all the new upcoming things that we can give to your patients from a treatment plan standpoint. So there are a couple things that make 𝗑𝗥𝗧𝗑 or 𝗑𝗥𝗧𝗑 and the 𝗑𝗥𝗧𝗑 method different. So first thing is really going to go into advanced dosing protocols. So again, we're going to kind of just keep it very basic here, but we provide a dosing algorithm that takes in your patient's age, weight, height, all your lab data, medical history. So is that patient on hormones? Is that patient a chronic pain patient? And the more data that you kind of enter in there with labs and symptoms and activity level, it gives you more precise and individualized dose for that patient. This is not a one-fit-all solution. Every patient is going to have a different dosage, a different treatment plan, and every patient's going to feel better at a different number per se. So we do provide you guys with a web-based dosing algorithm to make sure that you stay in the white lines. We want to stay very conservative with dosing. We do not want to jack, hormones all over the place. We want to make sure that your patients have a good slow introduction to those hormones being reintroduced, and then that we can mitigate the side effects and have them have the most best experience that they possibly can without having to deal with some of those nuances. Second thing is our innovative patented pellet formulation. So we are the only 503B FDA registered outsourcing manufacturing facility to manufacture our patented pellets. So we recently have gained that patent for 23 different uses. And, it's pretty tough to kind of gain a patent on something. You have to have a product so unique that it deserves a patent. So we'll kind of dive into that a little bit deeper. But the last one is our proprietary insertion technique. So we are the only training company that does train on a specific insertion technique, and that's to mitigate the trauma, mitigate the scar tissue, and some of the main problems that we see with pellet therapy, we have kind of been able to solve for. So we'll kind of dive into that a little bit deeper here. But with the proprietary insertion technique, it's really meant to create less trauma under the skin. What we see is when patients are on this therapy long-term, scar tissue buildup becomes a thing. Now, when scar tissue there, you run out of real estate, but then it inhibits the absorption. So now the patient may not be absorbing those hormones as intended. Faster healing over time. And so what we've seen too is when we place the males in a different area, we have better pellet placement, which we've found is a better absorption with surface area and things of that nature. We can dive into that more one-on-one if you are interested in kind of moving forward. But to keep time where it needs to be at, we're going to keep on rolling along. So Another thing too is we provide you a really, really cool auto ship program to be able to create a new revenue pillar into your clinic. So if a patient is on pellet therapy or really hormones in general, they're going to need to be optimizing some of their other vitamins as well. So vitamin D, your B12, thyroid support, iodine, iron, all the things that we neglect because we don't get it in food, we don't get it in supplements. So we provide a really cool service to allow you to either hold inventory in clinic, or you can put your patients on an auto ship program to where they are now, one, staying compliant and getting their nutraceuticals drop shipped to them every single month. And what's nice is it takes that kind of inventory off of you guys. You don't have to deal with that. And then your commissions get deposited into whatever bank account you set up within 48 hours. So it's a great way to create a new revenue pillar in your clinic and keep your patients compliant when it comes to nutraceuticals. So we do have some strategic partnerships with the pharmacy. So 𝗪𝗪𝗨𝗥 Custom Compounding, that's going to be our 503A patient-specific pharmacy. And then, like I mentioned, we have our 𝗪𝗪𝗨𝗥 Outsourcing, which is a 503B manufacturing facility. So kind of starting with our patient-specific side, we offer thousands of custom compounds ranging from BHRT products, B12 injections, peptides, things of that nature. But I really kind of want to bring it back to quality. Because, you know, you have tons of compounding facilities, you have different state regulations from state to state. And I think that's super important to kind of touch on that real quick. So again, every state has different regulations as to what a compounding pharmacy has to do. So we want to keep it and make sure that we have a very tight variance, and we want a third-party test to make sure that it's safe, efficacious, and potent for your provider or for your patients. So same with our peptides. I think that's very important as well. We can provide our certificate of analysis on every single one of our peptides to show that we have a 99% purity. So when you go to other compounding pharmacies and you really ask for these kind of different resources on their products, most of the time you see that the variance is up to a 30% variance. And so that 2.5 milligrams that you prescribe to that patient isn't fully there. So again, they may not be getting the results they want, or they may be getting overdosed because it's just all over the place with the variants. So it's very important to get with a trusted pharmacy that's doing third-party testing, making sure that that variance is nice and tight. And because our 503B is FDA registered, we have to adhere by strict FDA regulations. So because we have to do that on our B side, we are able to take that same kind of data and that same standard and put it to our patient specific side. We do offer free shipping with all of our products as well, which is very nice. So of course you see over here semaglutide, tirzepatide, CJC, BPC. We do creams, patches, orals from a hormone standpoint. So we have a wide variety of products offered. Briefly going to touch on this. This is our 503B outsourcing. So this manufacturing facility is strictly where our patented pellets are formulated from. So with our patented pellet, we have a very small trace of triamcinolone blended within our pellet. And so what we found with that is it keeps the inflammation down to a minimum. So when that patient's lidocaine wears off, they can go into their day-to-day and not have any discomfort or pain or anything of that nature. And then coupled that with our atraumatic insertion technique, we don't really create as much trauma and scar tissue. So patients are able to be on this therapy more long-term without having any issues with absorption issues or extrusions, which we want to mitigate as much as possible. So setting up your clinic for success with us. So we want to make sure that we can fully launch everything that you need from A to Z, to paperwork, to waivers, consent forms, keeping you compliant with the DEA as it's a controlled substance. We give you all these tools and resources to be able to launch these therapies. And then of course, you're going to have some boots on the ground too. You have a practice development specialist that you'll be working closely with so that they can help you launch this into your clinic, and you're not just left to be, you know, thrown to the wolves. We want to make sure that you have a partner to be able to fully implement this 30, 60, 90s a year from now. We will be there for you to be able to make sure that you have everything you need. So we have a few different technology tools. And I always love this quote: successful practices need proven systems. And it's so true, because why piece everything together when we have a system that we know is proven, it works, we use it in our medical centers. 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 Medical Centers does on average 800 procedures a month in pellet therapy, peptides, supplements, all the things. So you have to have those proven systems and tools to do that. So 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 is more of kind of your operational day-to-day ordering marketing material, ordering pellets, recording your procedures, things of that nature. 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 Online is going to be our educational platform. So that's going to be everything where your paperwork is housed, your training videos, courses, webinars, everything from an educational and paperwork standpoint will kind of be housed in there. Then we have 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗥 Connect. So we take our marketing a step forward with a really cool QR code campaign that takes your patients on a journey through their entire process. There's 3 different campaigns. There's a general education campaign where they take a symptoms checklist and their data gets sent to you as a provider to be able to initiate that conversation. Then we have the pre-pellet campaign and a post-pellet campaign. So it just takes them through this journey, reminds them, keeps them compliant. And then they share that with their friends and their friends start to call you up. Hey, I need to get my blood work drawn. So we've seen that people start to share that link as well. And lastly, we went into the 𝗬𝗡𝗫 auto ship. I'm not going to go into that again, but smarter marketing. So again, kind of going back into 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗥 Connect, you have individualized QR codes that take your patient through a journey. They go over frequently asked questions. So this is essentially working while you're working. While you're back with the patient, we're going to have a banner and poster in your waiting room, and your patients are going to be able to scan that QR code, and those leads are going to be sent to you as a provider. 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗥 TV, we do have fire sticks with different patient testimonial, shareable content on social media and things of that nature. So we have a lot of different resources that we offer you from a social presence and to be able to educate in your platform. So these are some examples of the banners and posters. You will have options to pick kind of whichever ones you want as part of our partnership. And then lastly is our PST forum. So you don't have to be on an island by yourself. I'm not going to go into all of this, but we want to make sure that you have the support backing you from a medical standpoint, but also the support from a business standpoint. Paperwork, tools, resources, all the symptoms, everything, dosing, everything you kind of need to really fully launch this into your clinic. So we do a lot of advanced lectures, webinars, live streaming events, and you have that access to that at your fingertips. So if you're running, an errand and you want to listen to thyroid, we talk about all of that. So it's a really cool way to not have to be on an island by yourself and piece a whole program together. It's already put together for you. And then we just help you launch this proven system into your clinic. So kind of next steps from here is to book a discovery call. I am going to open it up for some Q&A right now. If you have any questions at all, if you want to put them into the chat box, we'll kind of answer that, me, Jeff, and Dr. Stewart. And then really next steps from here is we want to get on a one-on-one call with you. There's different ways that we could do business with you based on what your clinic is needing. So we are really able to curate an entire program for you to make sure that you have really what you need for what you're looking for. So really next steps from there would be to schedule the discovery call, but we'll open it up for a Q&A right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, with all the brochures and the different topics that y'all have, there's a portal and it has like thyroid, and there's a brochure and education. So there's all these different topics and patient education. And yeah, I went into the portal and went crazy and ordered all of it.
No, and that's actually a really good point you made. I didn't kind of go into that, but it's not just hormone marketing. It's not just, pellet marketing. We're a very comprehensive company. We don't want to just teach you about how to put a pellet in and then you're off and you're out. We want to teach you about the foundation and gut health and thyroid optimization and testosterone and all the things, because if one area is not optimized, then something's probably not going to work as great as it could. So we have compliant marketing material. I think that's very important too, is everything's already compliant for you. You don't have to worry about, okay, did I just post something that I probably shouldn't have post? So everything's already done for you. And it just goes back to why recreate the wheel when it's already created. So yeah, we offer a lot of different options for you.
Hey, Jordan, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I know we didn't go heavily into peptides, but remember I said one thing is I asked Jordan to let us know. I went to the training that included the hormone replacement therapy, 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗥, and the peptides in the same weekend. But if you're looking for peptides or one or the other, you can do either or, but I did do both together. And I think these two are one of these has both, right?
Yeah, the December date. Yeah, it'll be November 30th is the peptide training, and then December 1st and 2nd is for our HRT training. Yeah. So I was just going to make a quick comment. Jordan, thanks for going into that. For those of you that again are new to hormone replacement therapy, we had a quick hour, obviously, just to do a brief introduction to you guys. But the question that needs to sit in your minds, or at least the question that I would pose to you guys, is, are hormones good? And do patients need it? Are hormones foundational to a patient's health? Are they foundational to your health? Because if you look at what the medical literature says, and by the way, when we talk about medical literature, we're not talking about a couple hundred studies or a little bit of clinical research. We have over 15,000 pieces of medical literature in our medical vault, along with almost 20 years of medical history in our own medical centers. So we're clinic centric. Not only are we a training company where we engage with practitioners like you, we have our own medical centers. And Jordan mentioned that. We see 800 to 1,000 pellet patients, for example, every single month through those clinics. But we come from a position where we've seen what the medical literature says, but then we've also experienced it with hundreds of thousands of patients that we've been able to treat with this therapy, and then hundreds of thousands of patients that we've been able to impact because we've been able to train thousands and thousands of practitioners around the United States on these therapies. So what I would ask of you or challenge you is to, if you didn't receive training coming through medical school, that you would consider being trained on hormone replacement therapy. There's just too much medical literature to ignore it. We have, as I said in the beginning of this call, we have disease rates that are on the increase, and we have patients' health and vitality that's on the decrease at the same time. So you have to ask yourself the fundamental question: are hormones good? Are hormones necessary? Are optimal ranges of hormones necessary for healthy living, for disease prevention? And if the answer to that is yes, and you start to think, yeah, I have patients that complain of that, maybe you complain of that, maybe you've got your own health issues, your own symptoms that you're dealing with, you probably ought to get your labs checked. And you need to get your labs checked from a provider that's been trained in hormone replacement therapy. If you get your labs checked from someone who hasn't received training, they may come back to you and simply say, hey, your labs are normal. Well, all that normal is just the average range of a population. And in many cases, the average range of a sick population. So again, I just want to pose to you the fundamental question: can you start to see that there's enough medical literature out there that points to the fact that patients would actually benefit from hormone optimization? And as Dr. Stewart just said in the chat, normal is not optimal. Just because you're normal, well, you're just like everybody else in the population that's sick. It doesn't mean that you're optimal. It doesn't mean that you're living a vital, full life that is feeling well, but also avoiding those diseases that exist within our families. So once you come to the conclusion that, boy, patients need this, I need this, the population needs this, we would benefit from this, there's too much information around preventing these diseases for me to ignore it, then you have to go to what Jordan touched on, which is you're going to need a system. You need a system to deploy this within your office. How am I going to market to my patients? How am I going to educate my patients? How am I going to market these services? How do I market them in a compliant way that I'm not saying something that the FDA or the DEA doesn't want me to say? How do I make sure that I'm DEA compliant? You need a system to deploy within your office. And that's really what our system is. It's a system that's designed to attract, manage, and retain patients for you. And when you do that, you're able to create superior patient outcomes. You get that patient's health back to where it needs to be, and you're able to create predictable recurring revenue for the practice. So we're not about money. We're not about chasing money, but we know that you also are running businesses, and we want you to do well financially. We have a little saying that says, do well, meaning do well financially by doing good for your patients. So ask yourself that fundamental question: are hormones good? And if you come away from that saying, yeah, optimal ranges of hormones are good, and there's enough medical literature out there that I at least ought to go and pay attention and listen to what it is that the medical literature says. And then after that, you'll realize that you need a system in order to be able to deploy it within your office. One of the things that we get to see is we get to interact with all disciplines of medicine, as I mentioned at the beginning of this call. So we interact with, again, primary care and integrative physicians as well as wellness physicians, but OB-GYN and urology and gynecology and pain management doctors. The list just goes on and on. And there's a startling stat out there that says that while medical practitioners are moving into proactive healthcare, some of the things we're talking about tonight, there's also a 90% fail rate when practitioners try to make this switch. And the reason they fail is because they don't have a couple of things. They don't have a trusted therapy. So they chose a therapy that doesn't have any evidence to it. They chose a therapy that hasn't been studied. The next thing is that they don't have any medical training or business support, and then they don't have a trusted compounding pharmacy. And 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗥 Health Solutions is here to provide all those things for you. Trusted therapies, evidence-based, scientifically proven trusted therapies. We're here to give you the medical and business support that you need to implement this into your practice and to give you ongoing medical training and ongoing business support. And then we're that trusted compounding pharmacy. We're not going to bring you medications that haven't been safely tested, and we have a certificate of analysis on every single compound that we produce that we're able to say it's been tested, it's been proven to be safe and efficacious for your patients. So ask yourself that question: are hormone replacement good? If the answer to that is yes, then you're going to need a partner in order to implement this into your practice. And we'd love an opportunity to be able to share more with you about that. Are there other questions or any other comments? Anybody else in the chat that maybe wants to add or clarify or ask a question about? Again, the big step next is obviously to spend a little bit of time with Jordan to specifically talk about your office, your practice, and how we could implement this or therapies like this into your space. What did you say there, Dr. Sterk? Go ahead and you can open your mic.
Okay. No, I was saying, so virtual, of course, is great, but if you have the chance to go in person, you could always do virtual and go in person later. But at some point, go in person. It was great for networking. It was great to talk to, as you just said, so many other disciplines in the room. It was so great to learn from them as well as learn so much from the training and network. So yeah, I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, we found the same thing too. I'm really glad you said that. We do offer it virtually, but boy, we would really encourage, if not beg you to come to the in-person, because your learning will just be so much more. Virtual, it's just to collaborate, like you said, with other practitioners, to have your questions answered kind of in real time right there. We've just found that practitioners learn so much better when they come to in-person. And that's really the key to success if you want to move forward with this therapy, is you've got to be really good at the medicine. And you've got to dig into that medicine. And we just want to provide those tools and resources so that you can get really good at the medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hi, can I ask a question? I'm sorry I didn't put it in the chat. Because the chat keeps saying that something's wrong, try again later. So I can't add anything, but that's okay. That's okay. So I have a question. So I know there are two courses or two classes coming up in November and December. I'd like to do the one in December. So how do I connect with you, Jordan, to be able to come to that class? Yeah. What's the cost?
Yep,
and just
go ahead. Next step. So if you want to scan this QR code, this is going to bring you to my Calendly link, schedule time. We're going to get on a virtual call and we're just going to break it down to cost and kind of what the nitty gritty of the business model looks like. So yeah, just scan this QR code. It's going to redirect you to a link and then we'll get on a virtual call as soon as possible.
Awesome.
Are you local in Florida?
No, I'm in Missouri.
No worries. We got you covered. So just go ahead and scan that and then we'll hop on a virtual call from there.
Okay.
Thanks for attending.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyone else have any questions?
Did you take everyone off mute? Maybe if the chat's not working, they could just
Yeah, let me see. Oh, didn't mean okay, let's see here. I think I gave everyone the ability to talk.
Yes, you told us that. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the beginning I did.
Okay. If there's some reason, if you have a question and you can't get it answered, of course, I know a lot of you are quite comfortable with, we talk a lot in DM, so feel free. I can still direct you on how to reach Jordan and or then she'll connect you with who you need for your area and how to proceed. But I'm super excited. I've been excited since the day I landed in Texas and then arrived to that training. I was like, it's the whole family. Like, I was like this. I mean, I felt like I was at the integrative medicine headquarters of the world when I went to the 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗑 clinic in Texas. It was amazing. Wow, it's just a different mindset, different way of thinking, and a whole different energy. Someone raised their hand. So
yeah, let's unmute Miss Desiree. Let's see here. You should be able to unmute yourself, Desiree. Is it not allowing you?
Okay, hello, you guys. Sorry, I literally just joined. I was on another meeting, but I was like, let me see if they're still on. So I do have a question. So
Yeah.
I spoke to someone and they said that I'm in Texas, and they said that I'm a nurse practitioner, and my collaborating physician, I would have to get 2 DEAs for my collaborating physician because I would have to have one on site at my practice for my collaborating physician in order to use come to the training and use 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗑's products.
Oh,
Jeff, I'm gonna let you speak on that one.
Yeah. So it is state driven by what licensing you have. So we would look at, I know you mentioned that you're a nurse practitioner, but it's a state-by-state decision on what you're able to do with a controlled substance. Now, I know that you can prescribe, but there's a difference between prescribing and procuring. So you heard Dr. Stewart mention earlier that we house a controlled substance in your office. And so if you're working with a collaborating physician, then we can ship to where your collaborating physician has their DEA license registered. So we'll look at your individual situation when you go through our application process. But if we need to set you up that way, it's really relatively inexpensive and it's very easy to do. But we'll definitely help you through that process. And again, we do that on a state-by-state basis. So we'll take a peek at that, make sure that we have, and the main thing on that is we've got to make sure that you're safe and that your license is protected, not only your license, but also your business. If you have a DEA violation as it pertains to a controlled substance, it can be up to a $10,000 fine per incident. So if you start seeing, several patients, you can see how that can get really costly very quickly. So yeah, it's a state-by-state regulation. When you go through the process, we'll look at that. We'll set you up with that. It sounds like you've already got a collaborating physician. In some cases, the collaborating physician needs to have their license registered to where you're shipping. In other cases, we just need that collaborating physician's DEA license on file, and then we would use your DEA license to ship to your actual address. But we'll look into the particulars when we go through the application process with you.
Wow, good point.
Okay, thank you.
Good to know. I know in Florida,
Florida's definitely different. Yeah, Florida's definitely different. They've got a lot more autonomy and opportunity and space there. And again, there's probably about half the states in the United States that have some different regulations around that. So that's why I say we'll look at your individual state and work with you to be able to get it. But it's really not that big of a deal. We cross that bridge all the time with practitioners, and we can again walk you through the process. It's not like a big spend or a lot of dollars to be able to do it, but we can, if in the event that you had to add an additional DEA license, but we can help you with all that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Even just the training, because I think that, there's a lot of medicine here and things to know, but I promise one of the things that I was most stuck on was like, oh my gosh, am I going to do this procedure right? I saw some one training I went to, the one before this one, it was a traumatic. I watched this doctor demonstrate inserting the pellet and it looked traumatic, y'all. So when I went to this training and the way they show us to insert it, it literally feels like butter. Like you're just going in and it just feels like you're sliding into butter and you just pop them in and you're done. Men is a little, you have to do a little more on the insertion. But even with that said, that technique, because the first technique had me terrified, like, oh my gosh, this is so brutal. But with this technique, I was more confident. Also, I was super impressed with the triamcinolone. that helps with the inflammation pain. Me, myself, having had the pellets twice, the lidocaine wears off, and I really only might feel almost like what you would feel if you got an IM injection anyway, and that's it. So
yep,
it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we want it to be a pain-free procedure. We want to cause as least amount of trauma as possible, and so the technique is super important. Like you said, there's a lot of different people out there that are doing pellet therapy a lot of different ways, and so you have to make it pain-free for the patient. You have to make it trauma-free. You know, you don't want it to be sore for days on end. You want to be able to have that patient recover very, very quickly. So we've been in this space. You know, a female procedure is about 2, 3, 4 minutes to be done in office. A male procedure, like you said, because typically there's a few more pellets that we're putting in, you know, might be 4, 5, 6 minutes, but you don't need a stitch. You put a steri strip back on, and again, because of triamcinolone and what we're able to do with the lack of inflammation and the technique, patients can return back to activity a lot quicker and really have a pain-free experience. So,
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Well, I'm thinking that we should honor people's time here. You guys have been late in the day.
Thank you.
Yeah, we want to just thank you guys for joining for sure. We'd love for you to schedule some time to learn more. Dr. Stewart, it was a pleasure to have you on tonight. Thanks for putting this together, really. Thanks for being just someone who wants to share that impact and that not only in your own life, but also what it's been able to be for patients as well. So just thank you for being on mission with us. We're setting out there to positively impact people's lives, the advancement of medical wellness, and you're certainly doing that in the place that you've been called to do. So very, very grateful for you.
Thank you. Likewise, I appreciate you all as well. Thank you so much for joining me on this.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you, guys. We hope to be in contact with you guys soon. So have a wonderful evening.
Good evening.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.